Okay, so hi guys, thank you so much for joining Venkat and me to talk about career and entrepreneurship. So I'm gonna take a moment to introduce him. So Venkat's a partner and director at Boston Consulting Group, also known as BCG. He got his bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Georgia Tech and his MBA from Wharton. And he also co-founded a company called ZenCars, raised funding from first round capital. So I probably can't do justice to your amazing journey. So do you want to, talk a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Can folks hear me? Am I coming through pretty clearly?
I think you cut off a little bit.
Okay. Tell you what, if I continue to cut off, let me know and I'll dial in through my phone. I'm connected through my computer audio right now. So just let me know if it breaks up at any point. Just to introduce myself a little bit more. So hi everyone, my name is Venkat. As Nandana said, I'm a partner at the Boston Consulting Group. I live in LA, but originally I'm from India. Nandana and I are from the same town actually, and I was an international student at Georgia Tech. I went there to get my undergrad in industrial engineering. And when I came to Georgia Tech, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I through the course of my 4 years there, eventually decided I wanted to work in consulting. And I was fortunate enough to have interned in a couple of places, and eventually, after I graduated, joined BCG. So I joined as an associate out of undergrad. After a couple of years there, I actually decided I wanted to try a couple other things. So I worked in India for a bit in microfinance, worked in Italy in the World Food Program, and this was a phase of my life where I thought I was curious about international development. Decided that's not what I wanted to do, and instead went to business school, got my MBA at Wharton. Also started a company while I was there called ZenCars, for which I raised some funding, built a team, launched a business, and ran with that for a couple of years. With startups, of course, you're always taking a risk, and it was a great journey, but ultimately we had to close down. At which point BCG invited me to rejoin, and I rejoined BCG, especially as they were starting a new group called Digital Ventures. So this new group is what I'm part of, and this new group focuses on corporate innovation, on digital innovation for large companies, where effectively I help build new businesses within large companies. So I get to be both an entrepreneur, but also get to work with large companies at the same time. So I've been here since our early days, and this group has grown from about 30 people when I joined to about 1,000 people around the world right now. And so that's where I work out of our LA office, which is our largest office. So that's just a quick overview of my journey. I'm happy to talk more about certain parts of it, but I'm excited to be here and talk to you all.
Wow. Okay. I have so many questions, but I think first, I want to focus on your entrepreneurship phase. So I'd actually love to hear more about it, especially, the passion and the motivation behind it.
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur is both a tough thing, but an exciting thing, right? Being an entrepreneur means you're building something, you're creating something that didn't exist before. You're building not just a product, but often a team. You're building, as you grow, a pool of investors that are backing you. You're building a number of different things to bring your vision together. And I can talk about what it takes. In addition to skill set, there's a lot of just passion and belief, and so willingness to trust the journey that you need to be an entrepreneur. And I'm so really glad to have done it. I will say it gets harder the older you get, right? So I'm now in a phase where my wife and I were about to have a child soon, and so being an entrepreneur now for me would be much harder than it was several years ago. So I'm glad I took a shot at it earlier. I know I would have always wanted to try it. So I'd encourage you all at the right times in your life, when you feel like you're able to give it a shot if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one question that I have regarding that is, how would you say that entrepreneurship journey helped you when you rejoined BCG, especially like when you were starting out at this new company that they were starting, or this setup called Digital Ventures?
So I think being an entrepreneur changes the perspective you have. When you're within a company, especially in the junior stages, you're focused on some very specific things, and you have a pretty focused role. When you're an entrepreneur, you're responsible for everything, right? From fundraising to building a team to setting direction, and so on. So it really forces you to take almost a CEO mindset, and it forces you to act that way in your interactions. You have to kind of puff your chest and appear bigger than you are, because otherwise no investor will take you seriously, no customer will take you seriously. So just going through that process, I think, forces you to grow in a way that sometimes just a traditional corporate role might not.
Makes sense. So yeah, I would absolutely love to talk about this with you all day, but like I was told that this is about the students and not me. So I'm actually going to give you a little background about our audience. So they're a group of really motivated, aspiring Chinese international students, and they're mostly North America and China, and they're mostly like undergrad students, and they really want to learn from you regarding advancing their career. And a lot of them have actually mentioned that their dream company is BCG. So as a partner, and you've probably interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of candidates. So generally, what do you look for in the interview process, specifically for consulting?
Yeah, so within what I would call the classic track, right, the generalist track, which is where most folks come into BCG or McKinsey or Bain or whatever else, there are a few things that fundamentally all these companies look for. And I'll kind of put down two markers, right? One is to even be called into an interview. So from the moment you put your resume in, you're starting to try to be noticed and stand out. The next part is, once you're at an interview, how do you go through the stages and stand out to get the offer? To get your resume in and to be noticed, I'd say that one is a little more straightforward, in the sense of, typically you need a great GPA, right? These companies, they want to make sure they're picking people who are incredibly sharp, people who are good problem solvers, and your academic performance is one indication. In the past, they've also looked at your standardized test scores. Some companies now are using them to different degrees, but I'd say, as a rule of thumb, your SAT scores or ACT scores can help as well. And those are just the measurable things, right? Then they're looking for, what have you done to actually demonstrate your drive and your let's say willingness to grow. So that basically means the experience you have on your resume, either in terms of internships or things you've done. Now, one angle to that is kind of recognizable names and recognizable experiences, to say, oh, here's someone who interned at a large company, and therefore we know that they must have learned something, and they must have had something in there to get there. But that doesn't have to be the only way. If you've done something else, and it seems compelling in the types of experiences given you, that can also help you stand out. And it always helps to actually connect with the recruiters, connect with the people working in those companies, and to have them act as either references or a way to give you a nudge, right? So those are the things you can do to get your resume noticed. But from that point on, if and when you get called in for an interview, it's almost a different game you're playing, right? Your GPA and SAT score matter less. I mean, they still matter, but what matters more is how you perform in the interview. So foundationally, across consulting companies, the thing that matters the most are case interviews, right? So doing well in these case interviews is incredibly important to them, because it's an indicator of how you think on your feet, and it's a way to assess your problem-solving skills. but it's not just about solving the problem, it's also about communication. So a lot of people, when they think about case interviews, they think about, okay, how do I get to the right answer? What's equally important is how do you communicate your thought process and your discussion so that you're seen as someone who can articulate well and stand up in front of clients and discuss things well. So the case interview portion is actually important from a few different angles. Increasingly, companies also have let's say, a softer component as well in these interviews. For example, McKinsey used to do this. I don't recall if they still do this, but there was a whole kind of leadership discussion that they would have, right? McKinsey really cares about its employees being not just smart, accomplished individuals, but people who can be true leaders. And so they would go into a whole discussion around, what have you done to demonstrate leadership? How does it stand out? And maybe Henry can speak more to this as well, but this is what I recall from my time. So those are just some of the things that they look for. It's one of those things where you can actually practice these things and learn them, but some of them take longer, right? Like what you do to build up your resume takes longer than perhaps the things you might do to practice for the case interview itself.
Right. Yeah. So actually coming back to the resume, because it's like the first barrier of entry for most of these students, considering that they haven't really done any internships at big companies. So as international students, how do you think they can differentiate themselves, especially when there's so much competition?
Yeah. So I would say if I take those two things, the measurables, I mean, those hopefully are self-evident, right? Like get good grades and perform well. But then if I get to the experience portion, in a world where it's increasingly with COVID harder to get or participate in more defined internship processes. Look, if this were any other year, I'd say, yeah, go look for a great brand name and look to get the experience of being an intern there. At the very least, you'll learn if you want to work for that company or not, never mind consulting, right? But in the absence of that, I would say look for ways to create experiences for yourself that stand out from being just projects, right? If I draw the line at experience to say within a school environment, you get project experience, right? It's like, you're in a class and you team up with a bunch of people and you have this defined question and within those boundaries, you do some things and you get some learning out of it. That's great. That's not what a lot of companies look for in your experience as standout experience. I don't want to discount that. That is important, but the more you can do to position what you do as crossing the line to being more real world experience, I think the more powerful it will be. And then the more you can do to make that real world experience feel like it matters, like it's meaningful in the impact it's had of the learning it's given you, that's when you're really hitting the right zone, right? And a proxy for that is of course, like, it matters because it's with a large company or a large brand. But in the absence of that, a different proxy would be to talk about what to be able to talk about what you've done in a compelling way, to have that role be compelling, or to have the impact be compelling, either because you've started something and it's engaged a large number of users, or you've created a headline somewhere in some magazine or newspaper, or you've gotten some investor to take a chance on you because they believe in what you're doing. There are other indicators you can look to build, even if it's you've gotten a certain thousands of users following you, right? Like any indicators of this being, it's not just a project, but it's real world experience and it matters. I think the more that will help you as a proxy for traditional internships.
Got it. I think that's extremely, extremely insightful. So what I want to focus on is the fact where you said we can substitute real world experience by starting something on their own. And I'm hoping we can kind of expand on that, because in light of the pandemic, like you said, internships are getting canceled and we don't know when recruitment will start again. And, when it does, it's going to be extremely intense. So keeping in mind that, they have this entire summer ahead of them. Like, if you were in their place and you were an international student too, and you had all of these struggles, like landing your first internship and all of that. So what do you think you would have done?
Yeah, so I would look to build. I would. So for me personally, right, I would have tried to scratch or hit two birds with the same stone, or scratch two itches, if you will, with one stroke. And one of those would have been this natural desire to start something and to take a shot at being an entrepreneur. The other would be to build this compelling experience and grow my resume with it, right? So that's let me call that path one, the entrepreneurship path. There's always path two, which is if you have let's say a personal network that lets you intern with a compelling company in a different geography, that's a reasonable path as well. I think it's something that one shouldn't discount, because experience is experience no matter where you get it, right? And I know companies, especially for internship experience, don't care so much if it's in the US or elsewhere, as long as it's material in its impact. But I guess I would think about which of those paths do I want to pursue. For me personally, I would pursue path one, just because I think it would have scratched both of those needs. And in that, I would look to say, what are reasonable markers I can hit to make this feel compelling, right? Is it hey, my city or my college has this funding program for startups, or is there some other let's say local either newspaper or demo day that I could be invited to in like 3-4 months. Basically look to establish a marker, if you can, of like ideally, if I wrote my resume 4 months from now, what would I want to put on it? And then work like hell to achieve that, right? An example of where this happens in the real world is Amazon actually does this with their product managers, right? They say, hey, before you build a product, actually write the press release. Write what you want to be able to say to the world about this product, and then work like hell to get there. So I would encourage you to do something like that. Write the bullets you want to be able to put on your resume from the experience you want to get, and then chart the best path you can to get there.
Awesome. So then I think I have like a pretty, I in my opinion, it would be like almost like a confusing question. But so let's say you have this choice between an unpaid internship versus actually taking the initiative to, start something on your own. So the risk sometimes with unpaid internships is you don't really get to do that impactful work. So in that sense, then starting something on your own might actually differentiate you better when it comes to resume application. Is that something that you can elaborate on? Or that's just my opinion, but yeah.
So I would say it's an answer that depends on what the options truly are, right? So if it's an internship, to your point, that doesn't have a meaningful it's not a meaningful company, it's not a meaningful role, and it's not a meaningful experience, then yes, it's maybe it's not as compelling as if you had something you want to do, and there's a path to do something that you were personally excited about, and that there was a press release or those bullets that you would write and feel like, okay, I could achieve those if I teamed up with the right people and went really hard at it. But if it is an internship opportunity that, yes, maybe the role is less meaningful, but it's an interesting company, and you could check the box, then I'd say, why not? So it's hard to answer it in a vacuum. I think it would depend on your particular choices. I'd say there's merit to both paths. One thing I've done is actually both, right? And so in business school, when I was building my company, I actually had to make a choice. Do I use my summer to go do this internship, or do I go build my company? I said, okay, I'm going to build my company, but there's a period of kind of, I think it was 5 weeks or so, where I was going to take a break to just be with family. And so I used that time to sneak in a quick internship.
Wow.
Just because I was, I was going to be at home, and I was able to use a network to get like this mini internship for a period of time. So that was my check the box experience. And I say check the box, I actually, got some value out of it in terms of, experiencing a different company in different environment. So it may not have to be an either or if you can use your side hustle, if you will, to build your company while you have an internship that's less demanding.
Makes sense. And another takeaway from me is I feel consultants have a very different way of relaxing or vacation than from me, for sure. So along those lines, let's say a startup or an entrepreneurship. How would that look in terms of, on the resume? Do you think it's something that catches attention as opposed to, a less meaningful role? Just, in terms of how many applicants there are for roles like these?
So let me use a couple of tangible examples, right? If your alternative was to work, do an internship in Microsoft, or to create a startup that at best you could say, we launched something and it didn't go anywhere, then yeah, do the internship at Microsoft. That's like a no-brainer. The Microsoft will stand out more. If your alternative is, hey, I could reach out to a bunch of companies and maybe something will come up, and maybe there's a role there that's interesting, or I could take a shot at something, I could tell a story that's compelling. I would say try to do both and see what sticks. One of the things about being an entrepreneur is you test and learn and you iterate pretty quickly. You don't have to do that just with what you're building. You can do that with your career as well. Take a shot at a couple of things and see where you're building momentum, and then you can always double down on that.
Awesome. So the prospect of entrepreneurship is extremely appealing, but it's also pretty intimidating, especially when you don't really have like a clear structure, or you don't know where to start. And there's always, again, like this risk of failure and not being able to do anything impactful. So what do you think there are some strategies that, the students and us can use to at least mitigate that risk?
So a couple of things about the risk that comes with being an entrepreneur, right? Like at this point, the only risk you're taking is, I would say, opportunity cost at best, right? It's the opportunity cost of what else do you do with your time. If you have a great internship on the other side that you're considering, like if Microsoft is knocking on your door, or Google or whoever, go do that. That's pretty compelling opportunity cost. But in this environment, I suspect a lot of companies are probably not offering very many of those opportunities. So in terms of risk that you're taking on, you're not taking on very much risk. Like, go do this. What I will say is the way to give yourself the best shot at being successful in this environment, I'd say there's a few principles, right? One is try to build something that's solving a real need. The biggest issue a lot of startups have, a lot of entrepreneurs have, is they build something that they think is cool, but no one else really cares about, right? So try to build something that matters. Then try to build something that you have an avenue to distribute, right? So just because you built something doesn't mean people will adopt it, because most of the time they're not sure about it. So if you build something that you're like, hey, I have this avenue, whether it's because I'm on campus and I know I can blast a bunch of people with these emails, or I'm part of this group and I know some people there will start using it and they can tell other people, or so on. Think about not just what is the solution, but what is the distribution model. that you personally can use to start building traction, then that will give you the best chance at creating something that matters. And then do it with a team, right? You may have great ideas and so on, but often it takes a village to raise a child, and the same sometimes with startups. It takes a bunch of group people to come and try different things and pull together something that actually works. So build the right team around yourself and the right mentorship, right? So team is not just about people that are your peers, but the right mentors as well to help guide you on this journey. And so with all of those, that you can give yourself a chance of creating something that matters. Again, the markers for success are, from my perspective, right? If I look at a resume and I see, okay, here's someone who's trying to be an entrepreneur, I ask myself, one, did they do something that matters? And how can I tell it matters? Can I tell because of some award they won? Can I tell because of how many people have used it? Ideally, it's because you've raised funding from VCs because your traction is so undeniable, right? Like that would be, if someone said, hey, I've raised X million from these VCs, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. That clearly matters. In the absence of that, it can still matter, but then you'd better point to some other user numbers or something else, right? And so that's why I say think about how do you build traction. If it's just I launch something and it exists, then it's the line between that and a project starts to be a little more fuzzy.
So just to recap, the metrics and the numbers are crucial when it comes to resumes and really like getting through in order to even get that interview.
The metrics and let me take those steps before that. The story of why it matters is crucial, and one way to achieve that can be the metrics and numbers. But it can be other qualitative indicators. That's why I say like a newspaper article, an award, any of those things, right? Like, does it matter is a question.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, it was so wonderful learning all of these things from you. And I am hoping we can actually go into like the Q&A section, because we have like a bunch of questions that these students want to ask. So, okay. So first question is, how many years of experience in the industry do you recommend us to have before starting our own business? Is there a perfect age?
No, there's no perfect age. In fact, I'd say, sometimes the earlier the better, because especially if your goal is to be an entrepreneur, what you'll find is you're not going to get it right the first time, many won't get it right the second or third time. It just takes a bunch of trying until something clicks. So think of it as you're trying to go down this runway in a plane and hoping it'll fly. And so the more runway you have, the better chance that it'll take off at some point, right? And so if you want to be an entrepreneur, start as soon as you can. And doesn't mean, again, you have to give up other things, right? A lot of people find a way to have side hustles and have those side hustles get enough attention until they start seeing traction, at which point it can become their main hustle, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that'd be my view.
Cool. Okay, so I think the next question fits in perfectly into, that little trick. So what it says, could you kindly share the tricks of getting traction, finding product market fit, and getting investor funding?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, investor funding will be hard, especially in this environment, right? So I don't want you to feel like, oh man, to make this be a successful experience, I got to get an investor to fund me in 4 months. It's realistically going to be hard in this environment. But doesn't mean you can't aspire or use that as a let's say stretch goal. In terms of getting traction, there's a few things, right? One is, again, build something that matters, and the way you do that is think about the users you want to target and their needs that you'd want to solve, and you don't have to build the whole thing, right? There's different ways. I mean, like lean startup methodologies around, can you do different types of fake it till you learn something kind of tests, where you're faking the experience but you're learning something from it, and then building progressively more and more features. There's a bunch of, like, there's a whole world of its own. But then the other part that matters is the distribution of whatever you build. Like, how do you get enough people to look at it, right? And that's where I would think about what are large pools of users you can access, and for most university students, that's other university students or clubs or whatever else they're part of. So think about what is a compelling solution that you could build for your university and try to drive it. At the top level, those are just a couple simple notes. This can be a whole discussion unto itself.
Got it. Okay. So I think our next, I think we should probably do like 2 more questions, and I know I wish we could answer all of them, but I think the next question is, how do we identify the best people to bring into our team when building this startup? And what do you recommend we should try to look for in a good mentor?
So with best people, I'd say a few things. One is just how well do you work with them, and how well can you disagree with them, right? When you agree with someone, frankly, you can't tell very much about do you work well together or not. It's when you disagree with them, how do you resolve something? So I think that's really a key piece to look at. Then the other is, how do they complement your skills, right? If they bring the exact same thing that you do, that's fine, but ideally they can bring some complementary skill set. And then I would say the same for a mentor, right? A mentor should be someone who helps guide you, brings a complementary perspective, but also challenges you. Because sometimes it's easy as an entrepreneur to let your bar slip because you have no one to answer it yourself, right? So a mentor should be someone who keeps the bar high for you. I guess at the headline level, those are some things to look for.
Got it. Okay, so then our last question, this is something more specific, but it's about, so if your GPA is, let's say, about 3.0, but you have GMAT grades which are still high enough, would they still be called for an interview?
Short answer is I don't know. It depends on companies. It depends on their individual scoring rubric. So I would say, listen, if your GPA is at a point where it is not going to move substantially, right? There's, to borrow a business term, it's a sunk cost, right? Like at that point, focus on the things you can change and affect, and like you're not going to solve anything by stressing over, oh, is my GPA going to hold me back or not? Like, it is what it is. Focus on the things you can measure, and focus on making the most of those things. Not measure it, sorry. Focus on things you can affect and change, and making the most of those things. So, like I including a lot of people I went to school with back in the day, like there's always a big debate on, hey, like what does it mean that my GPA is here? Is it going to hold me back in these things or not? And often just the focus on that piece prevents you from focusing on other things that you can actually impact still, because they're not baked yet. Right?
Got it. Yeah. So again, thank you so much for, taking out the time to do this and, answer questions for us. It was absolutely.
By the way, I'm happy to go for 5 more minutes if you think it's helpful.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay. Then we definitely do have some more questions. Okay. Fine. So how did you balance your entrepreneurial life versus, when you were doing your MBA?
Yeah. So at the point where I was building my business, I actually oriented everything else around it, right? So I like I said, I didn't do a full internship. I focused on building my startup. I actually spoke to my professors and changed the focus of my classes where I could build my startup and get credit for those through my classes. I did some independent studies. I used, for example, the marketing class to focus on marketing projects for my company. Things like that. So I try to wrap as much of my experience to help with my entrepreneurial pursuit as possible.
Awesome. Okay. So maybe one last question. So when you were launching your own company, there must have been times where you couldn't find the answers to all your questions. So how did you end up solving them?
Again, this is where kind of the mentors and teammates come into play, right? And often like in the world of business, you'll find this pretty quickly. They're not always right answers. There's only let's say persuasion. How do you persuade a group of people to make a choice and believe in that choice? And sometimes it's through logic that conveys the notion of being the right answer, right? Through math, through analysis and so on. Sometimes it's through just a sense of belief and purpose, and let's say going to underlying principles, right? Which is to say, if our principle is to be innovative and disruptive, which of these choices lets us be more innovative, right? Or if our principle is actually, no, we want to play it safe, which of these choices lets us be more safe? So people often jump to the analysis portion, and what I'm learning, what I've learned increasingly is sometimes you don't need to go that way. You can just, if you can get a bunch of people agree on a bunch of shared values, those can be the foundation for decision making as well. And they can be equally valuable or powerful in choosing a path.
Awesome. So yeah, again, thank you so much for, joining us, for, taking time out of your extremely busy schedule, especially on the weekend. And it was so wonderful having you. And I bet all of us learned a lot. So again, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say this, right? My entrepreneurial experience was really valuable. I think yours will be too. If you do have an opportunity, again, I say, if the Microsoft, Googles, or if there are any recognizable names knocking your door for internships, absolutely go do those things, right? So don't feel like building a company is the only way to get great experience. But I will say, in the COVID world, when those opportunities are fewer and farther between, building company can be a great way. Or building a product and building traction and can be a great way to learn a bunch of things and to have that materialize on your resume in a good way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for recapping that us, and it was so great having you.
Great. Thanks, folks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Bye. Good luck, folks.
Thank you. All right, guys, thank you so much for staying with us up until this point. And this session is going to be mainly about connecting all of the dots that Venkat mentioned when it comes to having that impact on your resume, when it comes to starting something on your own, how to make use of this summer. And I'm going to hand it over to Brian for that part.
Thank you, Nandana. Hi, everyone. Brian here. You might have met me before at previous Ignite events. I'm part of the team with Harry, Nandana, and Ali. I'll just share my screen for this next presentation. All right, so now I'd like to take some time to present an exciting program that we've been working very hard to put together. Over the last few months, we've had the pleasure of collaborating with the Easy Career family to achieve one goal. And that goal is clear: to get you hired at your dream firms. We talked to students from various disciplines and backgrounds and identified the main weak points that stand in your way. We consulted with professionals from various firms, including Venkat, who is just on the call with us, and we sort of identified these areas. Essentially, if you're a student who's stressed about your career prospects, if you lack a strong professional network, if you're struggling to differentiate your resume from everyone else's, and if you have little prior entrepreneurial experience, then we designed this program for you. We collaborated with recruiters and senior professionals from some of the most prestigious companies in the world to design a program that increases your chances of getting your dream positions. The program is designed to give you clear career prospects and a strong network. And I'd really like to emphasize the word strong here, because we're talking about top professionals from companies including Google, Amazon, Microsoft, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Goldman Sachs, and more. In addition, the program ensures that you gain the soft and hard skills that you will need to get your dream job and to succeed in your career. That being said, it's my pleasure to introduce the Summer Venture Program. The SVP gives you the opportunity to work with mentors from MVP, Goldman Sachs, and Tech Big Four to acquire an impactful professional experience in 10 weeks. Students work in a team of 4 to develop, launch, and scale your own business that will have a guaranteed high impact on your resume. In addition, students will gain technical skills, soft skills, and acquire a very prestigious professional network. As I've mentioned, the program was designed from the bottom up with the help of recruiters and senior professionals and is tailored to the needs of companies in the consulting, tech, and banking industries. So that's a high-level description of the program. And I'd like to go through a more detailed breakdown. Each student gets 10 sessions of personalized, or 5 sessions of personalized mentorship to help you develop professionally and personally, 10 sessions of project mentorship to ensure you get impactful results to show on your resume, 40 hours of workshops on topics including professional communication, problem solving, leadership, project management, business fundamentals, marketing, sales, technology development, and more. 4 sessions of personalized interview prep tailored for technical, consulting, and banking interviews. And we're really value to offer this. We're really happy to offer this extra value to round off all the previous, but we're offering a potential referral to the top companies based on your performance, but a guaranteed referral to alternate companies. So essentially, you're getting a referral regardless, but if you really want that referral at the Googles, at the Bains, at the top companies, then that depends on your performance during the program. Finally, I'd like to emphasize again, our goal is to get you into your dream firm. If you're ready to take the first step, scan this barcode. We have a limited number of spots, though we'll try our best to accommodate as many students as we can. That being said, I'd like to open it up to any questions you may have about the program. Feel free to ask away. Thank you for listening. I'll check the chat. Nandan, are you still on the call? How can I sign up? Just scan the barcode and it'll connect you to the Easy Career family where you can ask more questions, learn more about the program, and sign up. So the base price for the program is $4,000. And
actually, no, it's $3,700.
3,700, right?
Along with this $200 discount if they sign up now.
Amazing. When will the program start? It starts early June. Can I sign up with my friends? Of course. And you actually
we encourage you to do that because you'll get a team discount.
Precisely, yeah. The more if you sign up with friends, you get a team discount as well. Elaborate on how the summer venture program will look like on our resume. Of course. So you guys just saw Venkat talk about the importance of having impactful experience. So you can talk about, metrics, certain metrics and certain impact that you've had. So what this would look like is I collaborated with a team of 4 to turn my idea into a real life project that solved a real problem and got, 1,000 users, and we're promising those kind of numbers, those kind of metrics, 1,000 users to use the product. And we iterated, we worked on it, we launched in 5 weeks, we improved it, we scaled it, we went through the different, business thinking processes, marketing, strategy, etc. Do we have to have a venture idea? Nope. We actually provide you with a bunch of ideas, but one of the exercises that we teach and encourage is the brainstorming process, how to identify high potential ideas. That's one of the workshops we offer as well. But if you're not able to come up with a good idea, then we give you backup ideas. If I don't have a product idea, how will this program help? Yeah, I just answered that question. How many hours a week? Correct me if I'm wrong, Nandana. I think it was around 20.
Yeah, 20 hours a week. But of course, the more hours you put in, the more the results will show. And that's true for anything in life, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Awesome.
Alrighty.
So I think we've gone through all of the questions. Oh, what academic background do you encourage participants to have? Honestly, we welcome anybody. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, no, what you said is right. We welcome anybody. But as I mentioned, we planned it in cooperation with technology, banking, and consulting industries. So background could include computer science, math, stats, any business background. But really, it is open to anyone interested in those industries.
Okay.
Let me answer these 4. How do we overcome the technical part? So as I mentioned, we have 40 plus hours of workshops, and a lot of those are geared towards teaching you the technical parts. And, you won't really need a deep understanding of, for example, programming or technical concepts, because we walk through the project with you hand in hand. and not us, like the mentors from the top firms that I mentioned.
Also, we'll teach you how to use no-code tools, so you don't really have to be a nerd like Brian and me. Oh, I think we missed a question. Will the product launch in the end, and will we have funding? Oh, Brian, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so we're really trying to emphasize this idea of launching quick and iterating to get the maximum results. So the product actually launches 4 to 5 weeks into the 10 weeks, and then you spend the rest iterating and scaling and growing. But at the end, we have a competition, so where the different teams can present their work, and as I mentioned, the high-performing teams get that potential referral to the best companies.
Last question. What would be the minimum age that we're preferring?
I don't think there's a limit to the age here, right?
Yeah, we're not the government.
Students.
We don't discriminate.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think we've gone through all of the questions. Again, thank you so much, guys, for sticking with us until the end, and making sure you guys listen to us walk through the summer program, and of course attending the event with Venkat and me. Again, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll see you we'll see your applications for the program.
All right, thank you everyone. Thank you, Nandana. Have a good night.
Bye.